Hello and welcome to our panel, Comics and Neurodiversity. I have an esteemed panel of experts here who are going to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi. My name is Led Bradshaw, and I am the owner and illustrator of Jetpulse Comics. And shimmying behind me is
I'm Jacob, and we're the best people ever.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Dunford. I'm an autistic adult. I am the chairman of San Diego Comic Fest. I currently serve at Upper Deck Entertainment, where I oversee the Marvel comic trading card line. And as you can tell by my little library here, I really like comics.
So awesome.
Wonderful. Sally?
Hi, I'm Sally Pla. I write, I'm a children's author. I write for middle grade and picture books, and soon to be YA, I hope. I'm the author of Stanley Will Probably Be Fine, which is not technically a comic book because it's text heavy, but it's got a lot of comics in it. And I'm a huge comics fan. It's about a kid that's a comics fan that knows everything about comics. I have a couple of other books, The Someday Birds, for middle graders, and Benji the Bad Day and Me for a picture book. And all of my books feature autistic main characters. I'm autistic, and my whole family is really neurodivergent, and it's just my passion. So
Wonderful. My name is Jana Tropper. I'm a speech and language pathologist. I'm also the director of literacy for Reading with Pictures, and I have a spicy case of ADHD. So we are here because we're all members of the neurodiverse community. We know what an incredibly powerful storytelling medium and educational tool comics can be. It's especially embraced in our community. We don't always communicate in the most traditional ways, and being able to have images augment the words opens up a whole new world for connecting. We hope this panel is the very beginning of an ongoing conversation about how this medium is a bridge between people who may not always communicate in the same way, but can still find common ground. So first, neurodiversity is a relatively new word. We've heard words usually attached to the word disorder or condition, but neurodiversity really embraces the brain differences. Instead of stigmatizing something as other or different, or other and bad, it looks at other as just different. So I would like to start by having our panelists talk about what neurodiversity means to them.
I'm first. Okay. What neurodiversity means to me as a parent. It has really, I would say, Jake has really taught me. Like my son Jake has really taught me how to see things a lot differently. As a matter of fact, everything that we've done so far, like everything that we've built so far with the adventures of Jake Jetpulse and Jetpulse Comics, was I would like to call it like a beautiful accident, but it's one of those stories where my original intention was to find a way to communicate with him. When he was diagnosed at 3.5, I really didn't have any idea of what autism was, or and I was really like new to it as a parent. I really didn't have like any answers, and that was my my introduction to like really like doing a lot of research. Hi, bud. And have a seat, big guy. And what I remember is that like his special interests were superheroes, and that's all that he ever wanted to talk about. And hang out, big guy, hang out with us. And I noticed that like his love for superheroes, it was immense. Like there's closets and chests full of like, I don't know how many costumes
I have superhero costumes because I wish that I had superpowers. One, I could fly.
But how many of them do you think you have? You got to have at least over like 40 or 50 of them.
Yeah, and then right? I wish I could swing a web. I wish I had super abilities and run fast, but I can't do it because it's just not real.
Well, see, his special interests being that they were superheroes. It was one thing that he always wanted to talk about when he was in class, and it kind of hindered his his capability to learn. But like he knew everything about superheroes, but I wanted him to really embrace like reading and math. And then I don't know what it was that led me to like art therapy, and being an artist myself. I've been drawing ever since I was like 2.5 years old. My mom said I've been drawing ever since I could hold a pencil. And it was something I figured I would just introduce into his daily routines. And I would figure like 20 minutes a day, sit around and draw. And then that's how we came across one exercise. No, you want to put your hat back on, okay, bud? And we came across that one exercise, which was, drawing yourself as a superhero, which was meant to identify like your positive traits and embrace self-esteem. And then like I noticed it would just took off from there, where he would just create like his own comic book stories, where he would have his own adventures and things like that, and like he would create his own characters with their own colorful scenarios. And I figured that it would be a great way to take everything that he drew and like engage him, ask questions. And this is what happens. Like it taught me how to think like outside the box. I couldn't really just like my thoughts were way too like aligned. But as we sat and talked together, as we, he tells me more about his story, and as we talk more about superheroes and the meanings behind them, it really taught me a lot how to. I'm sorry for that. Jake, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay, can you sit up, bud? Okay. How about what you can do is like, finish up that drawing for me, okay, friend?
Okay.
All right, thanks. You have the markers over there?
Mm-hmm.
Great. But yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen.
It's all right, big guy. Don't worry, accidents happen. That's why pencils have erasers. So it taught me a lot. It taught me a great deal about patience. It taught me how to be a better listener. It taught me how to how to be just overall, just a better person, be more sympathetic, actually be more empathetic and listening to where he's, to where he is and how I can relate to him and communicate with him. I'm sorry if I rambled on, but that's pretty much what I have to say on that. So
That's lovely. We can tell it's a topic you're passionate about, and it's interesting because sometimes the things that
I have something to say too.
traits that are considered autistic traits that can be challenging for neurotypicals are difficulty with socialization and difficulty with rigid thinking. But you just talked about how that opened up a line of communication socially between you two, and it helped you think outside the box. I thought that was a very lovely connection you two make there.
Mm-hmm. Jake, if you want to sit down, come on, sit down, but don't play around. Sit down.
I'm not trying to play around. I didn't mean to just ruin everything.
Okay, that's all right. You don't have to ruin anything,
No,
buddy. You're not. Don't worry about it. You're fine.
No, I just have a feeling that I might ruin it.
No, just breathe.
No worries, bud. We can take a break if you need one.
You're good.
No,
Good job, Jake.
Because sometimes in my other interviews, I always said that I always jump off and jump in when other people are talking. So it just feels like I'm gonna mess it up.
You're not.
You're not gonna mess it up.
You're amongst friends. You're fine.
But actually, I have something to say. As a kid, as an 11-year-old, life is fun because do some fun stuff before you get into the adult age. Because listen, some of you have autism. That's okay. Listen, you did something special, and everyone can do something special. Because want to know why? You're not bad. You are awesome. You look cool when you have autism. You are better. You are strong, and you are intelligent. You can do anything. You can invent like a machine, like this.
Jake, no, don't touch my.
Like this walkie-talkie thing.
Okay, but don't turn it on, okay? Because
listen, you are special, and that's for you kids who are watching this, and for you Comic Con, for the people who are watching this, you are special no matter what. All right, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Jake. That was amazing.
Everyone that has autism.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Because
Thank you.
listen, wait, every day on YouTube, I see people sad because they're always getting made fun with autism, and I feel bad for those people. Don't you understand how they gone through? So
I
be,
know.
so be mindful.
Okay, so we got to let them continue, okay?
All right.
But thank you. Okay.
It's really thoughtful, Jay.
Choose
Matt, did you want to
something
share what neurodiversity
Sure.
means for you?
What does neurodiversity mean for me? Well, okay, so nowadays, I'm a 35-year-old man who basically has the great passion for the same things that I did when I was a little kid. Because, I heard the term autistic and Asperger's thrown around. And so it's like, I didn't hear the term Asperger's. And when my dad told me I had it when I was 14. So I guess I was a little bit of a later diagnosed because I didn't know what it meant. But, when you start looking into it, it means a lot of narrow yet you don't have diverse interests, but you have some very narrow, but they're intense. You just go hard into whatever you like. And so this has been something that's been with me all my life. At first, my first passion of things was as a little kid. I was obsessed with pirates. I would probably watch Peter Pan like 6 billion times a day. I loved Lego pirates. And one day my mom got me this Lego pirate set that actually had a comic included with it, Captain Redbeard and the Gold Medallion. And I'm 6 years old, I can't read. I'm like, Mom, read this to me. Dad, read this to me. Mom, read this to me. They get tired of hearing that over and over and over every single day. And eventually it just got to the point where they decided, we're just going to get our son hooked on phonics so he can read this Lego pirate comic. And it worked. I actually just learned to read simply so I could read this Lego pirate comic. And that was my introduction to comics. And then we just go ahead, just one day as my dad and I are browsing through Toys R Us in 1992, and I see the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was this holographic cover of a Spider-Man comic. And of course, yes, the holographic thing was a little on the shiny, flaunty side, call them gimmicks, but guess what? It worked for kids like me. And there were 30 Spider-Man comics in there to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Spider-Man. And I was hooked. I just read those issues until I fell apart. And here I am 29 years later, still relatively obsessed with Spider-Man, still, doing the same thing that I love. But comics were the gateway thing for me because they opened up stories for me. I found empathy with Peter Parker. I found I could relate to him because he was a guy who was suffering problems and things didn't always go right for him. And comics just were that escape. I didn't always have, all the friends in the world. And I found it very difficult just to, socialize even when there were people around me. But, if they had say, hey, did you guys watch the X-Men cartoon? I'm like, I will just explode every single fact out there. And it's great to have comics in our lives because I am still that kind of guy. If I see someone who wants to have, a conversation with me about superheroes or comic book stuff, I will explode every single little bit of knowledge out there that I have. And I just absolutely continue to love it. And the whole thing about it is you can see there's just like, you want more, you want more, you want more, you want more comics, you want more issues, you want more toys, you want more conventions, you want more experiences, you want more discussions with the people who create it. And I absolutely love this stuff. I've never stopped loving it over the past 30 years. And now it's wonderful that I've become a convention organizer of my own and I'll get to oversee entire Marvel comic trading lines from the very same cards that I collected as a child and help flourish them and, just bring them into a new life. It's absolutely a wonderful experience for me. And yeah, as you can say, we tend to ramble on and on. People on the autism spectrum, guess what? We've got that passion for those things. It's hard for us to venture into new stuff, but we keep learning more and more and more about everything. And yes, we may not be the best with eye contact. Fun fact, it activates an internal stressor and it makes us feel like we're being challenged. So if I lock eye contact with you, it's like, oh, I'm gonna school you with some Spider-Man right now. But it's wonderful to see. And I let my geek flag fly because of it. I'm always wearing a superhero shirt everywhere because, sometimes I'll go out and kids will say, oh, you like Spider-Man? Do I? And suddenly I'm in an hour-long Spider-Man conversation with a 9-year-old kid. And but I wouldn't have it any other way because I love to share my passion and I love to see others embrace theirs. And it gives a voice, it gives experience. And, you know, you may not have the relatability in your own life, but you can still create it through a fictional world.
Matt, thank you for sharing. That was fantastic. I think a lot of autistic kids with ADHD that have those passionate interests are told they'll, you know, hinted at they're going to grow out of it or something like that, but you've been able to embrace it, make a career out of it, and continue to make connections over it, which is...
When I was a little kid, my favorite things were Spider-Man, Pokemon, and, you know, in Star Wars. Guess what my favorite things are as an adult?
You found your true love very early.
Oh yeah.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Matt.
Even though this
Sally?
is a little bit of girl repellent, but okay. Hopefully I'll work on that later.
Hey, I think half this panel would say otherwise, but
Yeah.
Sally, speaking of.
Yeah, you know, I can really relate to what Matt's saying too, because I often describe myself as a professional 12-year-old. Just, you know, writing for kids is, I really found my heart's passion. It's something I came to later in life. I've always loved comics. I've thought about it. And, you know, Matt has the same interests. Actually, I wanted to say, it's kind of funny. Mine have changed really a lot. When I was actually 12, 13 years old, I could tell you everything there was to know about the NHL's history and the history of the New York Rangers. Every single player, every single stat, I knew it. And this was back in the 70s. I was like a maniac, but I outgrew that, and it, you know, it became a bunch of different things. I think writing for me is a special interest. How I've always loved comics, however, and I've always loved art. I think it started with my grandmother sitting me down at the kitchen table and just as something to do, saying, here, you know, here's the Sunday comics, copy them. Here's a piece of paper, copy Snoopy, copy Charlie Brown, you know, draw them. And I just loved doing that. She was someone that, you know, it was great to have her pay attention to us. She was a positive influence in what was sometimes a rocky childhood. So comics and art kind of got tied to that. I also loved the routine of knowing that every Sunday or every Saturday we could go down to the local town center, and in the pharmacy I was allowed to get one Archie or Spider-Man or Batman comic and one package of Razzles gum, and that was like the highlight. It was such a, you know, that I lived for that. So, you know, all those memories, you know, really added up to something special. You know, I think there's something about combining the art for people, for autistic people, people on the spectrum. It's the sensory delight of being able to look at the art that has so much meaning and how it combines with the words. And Led, you're the master at this, I'm sure, but for me, I know in talking to students or my kids now as an adult, you know, to be able to point to the facial expressions of the characters on the page and say, oh, wow, look what just happened. What do you think, you know, Peter Parker's thinking now? Or, you know, what's happening now? Or, you know, the thought bubbles, the difference between the thought bubbles and the speech bubbles. You know, like sometimes people think things, but they don't say them. And that's like a concept that's so hard to understand when you're a kid that takes everything at face value, and really everything is bewildering. Every social interaction needs to be studied. I mean, for me, I really felt like I was a little Margaret Mead trying to study how people related for the longest time. And having those visuals, you know, thinking in pictures, you know, I often think of like Temple Grandin's book, first book or something, or early one was called Thinking in Pictures, you know, and it really is, it's so helpful to have the visuals. So I think these are all ways that, you know, help people on the spectrum get some social fluency, and kids especially, you know, it's so important for them. And it's fun. It's just super fun. It's fun stuff, no matter what it is you're reading. And teachers sometimes say, you know, oh, well, it's not real reading, or, you know, it's just sort of like your dessert. You can, you know, you can read this, but really you should read the heavy stuff and the good stuff that's good for you. But I think that's a really wrong attitude to take. If it's not a joy to spend time reading, then what happens to our readers? They have to feel the joy. That has to come first and foremost. Yeah, lately there was a teacher that wrote a funny essay. It was called, she was a librarian actually, and she wrote a piece called Learning to Love Dog Man, and Dave Pilkey's Dog Man, which I have like a whole stack of books right here next to me, but you know this one is super famous. And Dave Pilkey is dyslexic, and he had a hard time and struggled in school as well, and his recourse was writing comics. But this librarian thought that, oh, you know, this is terrible. Oh, how do I get them away from Dogman and into actual literature? And finally, one day, she just let the kids talk. And she realized that as they were discussing like the latest Dogman, you know, in story, they were showing critical thinking. They were showing comprehension and reasoning and, you know, all of these skills, analytical skills that she'd been trying to teach them with the heavier stuff. They knew it. And it was fun for them to talk about when they were talking about something they enjoyed reading. And they can go on and, you know, grow up and read other stuff later too. But, you know, why ever put a kid down for reading comics? Whatever is fun, just embrace it.
Yeah, and it is kind of this whole world where, because it's like, it is something that I was, you know, being, you know, you did have to be, you find out you're autistic, you have to be kind of closeted about it. You also had to be a closeted comic book nerd. You got to be a closeted Pokemon nerd, because these are the kind of stuff that would just, you know, get you made fun of and beat up on the schoolyard. And now, we're in this, you know, wonderful golden era. It's like a geek chic,
Yeah.
where, you know, you have billion-dollar superhero movies coming out. You have people flaunting this stuff. You'll have people, you know, walking down the street wearing a Spider-Man shirt or Superman shirt or Batman shirt. And a lot of these people will never even read a comic in their entire lives, but they like share the symbolism with it. And of course, I wish that people would get in these comics and see this wonderful world of all these characters. And of course, it's not just superheroes, it's young adult, it's science fiction. You know, there's Marvel stuff, there's DC, there's creator-owned stuff, there's manga. And, you know, I read all of it. I'm writing just in my Marvel room right now. I got a DC room, I got an Image room, I got a Dark Horse room, I got all the stuff. It's like, I never stop reading. I usually probably read about like maybe 30 comics a day, because like, you know, I am, you know, hefty in it. And of course, I like to think that, you know, comics are often a gateway into a literacy addiction, because, you know, you get them hooked on reading.
Yeah.
And to parents out there, a child who is addicted to comics will never have money for drugs.
I think we have the title of our panel. Thank you, Matt. Thank you all for sharing. It seems like comics, our next question was going to be about how comics are uniquely engaging for neurodiverse learners, readers, but it sounds like you've all identified different aspects of it. Sally talking about the speech bubble versus the thought bubble, in addition to the concrete nature of the images. And then Matt talking about how Spider-Man was shiny, which is usually our ADHD thing, but you're welcome to it.
Holographic covers were a cool 90s gimmick. I still love them, but of course it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the sensory delight, as Sally said. So something, visual feast for the eyes, something that the kids can engage with, especially if they're struggling to decode. They still have access to the story, even if that decoding piece is a difficult thing. So was there anything else anyone wanted to share? A particular comic you remember, something that drew you to it?
There's one comic that really made an influence to me, and it wasn't even, and I've been like another like diehard collector, like I remember since maybe about the age of 5, and I still, you know, like share that experience with Jake. I take him to the comic book store and we have our pick list and we grab our comics and such. But there was one comic that really stood out, and I believe it was a G.I. Joe issue. And it was, I think, G.I. Joe number 20. You know what? I may get the issue number wrong, but it was called Silent Interlude. And it was the one comic where the character Snake Eyes, it's a very character-driven issue where nothing is said. I think there's only one sentence in the entire story. But what I found so amazing about it was that the artist, the way how the artist displayed, like just told the story through nothing but sound effects and just like facial, you know, just facial expressions. You know, I thought was absolutely amazing. And I still to this day say that it was one of the coolest issues I've ever read, because it really influenced me. Like, hang on, buddy. It you know, it really influenced me a lot, and really like when it comes to like my drawing, you know, the characters in Jetpulse, I'm very expression heavy with making sure that the expressions can be read. It was one of the exercises that I would do with Jake by asking him, so what do you think, Julie is feeling? How is what feeling is what do you think Mars is thinking right now? And that would be the way I would get him to understand facial expressions, because I remembered he used to have a problem with that. There were times when he was younger, maybe like 5 or 6 years old, where he would have to ask, he's like, are you mad? Are you happy? And I would, try to help him by really, emphasizing the expressions and movement so that he was able to understand. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I wanted to add, though, that one of the things that really influenced me as an artist, to really help and engage Jake so that, I can help teach him, was that one issue of G.I. Joe, which I still have somewhere. It's probably up in the other cabinets upstairs. But yeah.
Yeah, do share it if you come across it. I would love to check that out. One of my favorite comics. Yeah, one of my favorite comics is The Arrival by Sean Tan. The entire graphic novel has not a single word in it. It's all symbols. It's all facial expressions, and it really only uses a couple sepia tone colors. So it's
that's
incredible.
beautiful.
Yeah, if you want to learn how to read comics very strictly by paying attention to the pictures, and it sounds like that G.I. Joe issue are a way to do that. And that's I think that could be very engaging for a neurodiverse reader. On that topic, are there any other comics that you all would recommend, either by neurodiverse authors, artists, creators, or starring children or adults who are autistic, ADHD, have a neurodiversity?
Sorry, Matt.
It's interesting because there's a lot of stories that are kind of just out there that are kind of implied that characters are neurodiverse. I mean, there's a lot of people that make the argument that, say, is Sherlock Holmes neurodiverse because he's so detail oriented and he's able to hyperanalyze every situation. And I mean, it's nice that there are, I've seen some comics and over recent years that have starred neurodiverse characters. There's a Postal from Top Cow by my friend Matt Hawkins, which actually featured, a neurodiverse character lead, even though it's more of a, drama story. It may not be the most appropriate for young adults, but it's like if you're looking for an engaging story with, a neurodiverse lead character, that's definitely one that goes on there. And, it's nice that a lot of the young adult books have come out along the way. I know Sally has recommended a lot of them to me. They end up sitting on my list for a long time, and I still need to get them. As much as I plow through my reading list every single day, it's like I wish I could get to them, but there's just it's a never-ending struggle when you've done that. I mean, I've read more than 50,000 comics in my life, and I'm still catching up.
Yeah, I was going to say too, thinking about that question, I'd actually done a little Googling around to try to see, well, how many neurodivergent writers, authors, illustrators, or main characters are there in comics? There are not that many. Although, as like Matt says, probably implied, more than anything. But there's certainly, the theme of being an outsider or feeling like you're an outsider is certainly heavily represented in YA as a theme. So, you could think of it that way. I was thinking about like Raina Telgemeier's, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, but her, Guts. Which is basically anxiety. She's having anxiety and social anxiety. It's great. I don't have a copy of it with me, but I have a copy of her Smile, and the cover looks pretty similar.
I think that's purple.
Guts is purple, and it's a frowning person. But yeah, so there's that, and then along the outsider theme, something that I really loved. I love this book so much. Is Jean Lewin Yang's American Born Chinese.
Yep.
Such a wonderful story, and not really neurodivergent, but he is a geeky outsider kid that is not finding his place, and that's the storyline I think that we all kind of are drawn to and relate to as Aspergians or whatever. Yeah, something I thought was pretty cool too. It's like Chris Ware. He has a, oh gosh, no, I'm forgetting the name of it. It's Joey. He has, one of his early comics was about a really anxious, really outsidery character that you could really make the argument was autistic. And now I'm forgetting it, of course. But he had this great quote that I came across, that comics are no more words in pictures than singing is just words in yelling. And I thought that was really funny and really good. So I just wanted to like get that in there.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, there you go.
Jake, do you want to share any of your favorite comics?
Yes.
Can you tell us about
What
some
are
of your
favorite
favorites?
comics,
Yes. My very own comic is this.
bud?
My favorite comic is my own. That's my own.
No, sit up, Jacob.
Because
Sit up.
I
Sit up
am
straight.
the big man.
That's
Jake, can you
awesome.
tell us about how you work with your dad to make your comic?
Well, I draw new characters. I got them ideas off of YouTube. One, a werewolf video from a flip note. I got the idea to make a werewolf person. It's like a character like Jacob, you know. Soon on Halloween, like sometime, I'm gonna make an animation about the character that it's werewolf Jacob. Here is the appearance. At night, Jacob gets bitten by Bo when playing out in the woods. Jacob and Bo go out for shotgun hunting until Jacob turns into a werewolf and attacks Bo, and then Bo becomes a werewolf and they attack my dad, and then he becomes a werewolf.
Why me? Well, I didn't do anything.
Because sometimes that's the appearance.
Oh, I got it. One of the things that we find that's really cool is that I allow him to let his imagination run. So it's what I do is I always tell him to swing for the fences, you know, like really just throw the line all the way out and we'll just reel it back. So when it comes to like creating characters, just as he was doing during our discussion, he was sitting there drawing and he would come up with an idea and he's like, I really have this cool idea. And then he'll give me a backstory. Like every character that he creates has a backstory. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of find a way to weave it into the already existing story. Because Jetpulse was born not only from the art therapy, but also from like cosplay, from him dressing up as the character running around the house. And so I took notes to like record everything that I always thought that while he's playing, everything is just information for me to help build this comic book universe that he has in his head. And it's just me that's interpreting it. So if anything, he's probably like one of the youngest art directors who pretty much just watches everything that I do. And if it's not right, then I'll go back and make the changes. And, you know, I wanted to get it as close to his imagination as possible. So, but that's pretty much how the experience goes, how we sit together and we work on things. So, is that right?
That is so cool.
Awesome. Give me one.
But I also have an autistic son that really loves to draw and everything. And Jake, I think you would have really liked him too. And he really kind of inspired Stanley Will Probably Be Fine, this story, which is set in San Diego about a boy who's really anxious and really sensitive. There's Stanley there. And he also is obsessed with superheroes and comics trivia, and he invents his own superhero. He draws it on the board at school. I think it sounds like a book that you might like because of that. And he also knows like everything about comics. He's really into it. And he decides to enter this treasure hunt all around San Diego to win tickets to the big comics fest. And he thinks that way he's going to redeem himself in the eyes of his like fellow students in middle school who have kind of ditched him and are not his friends anymore. So that's
sounds like a guy I know.
But Stanley's dead.
No, I know. No, she's talking about Stanley, the name
Yeah.
Stanley.
Oh, and that's why he's called Stanley. It's like a little tribute to Stan Lee. That's why his name is Stanley, but it's a different Stanley. He's the main character of the book. He's a boy.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you can see the picture up on there. Oh, there he is. That's
I see it.
the Stanley character from my book. Yeah.
Awesome.
And he was drawn by Steve Wolfhard, who was a storyboard artist for Adventure Time.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, he did a great job with the art in the book.
Oh, I can see the style now.
Yeah,
Yeah, you said it.
yeah. The
I can
eyes kind of
definitely
far apart and everything. Yeah, he drew some really good characters.
and the noodle legs.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So we are coming to a close here. Any parting words you would like to share with neurodiverse children who are wanting to be creators, who are wanting to have careers in this area? Any words of wisdom you'd like to pass on?
I've got some advice. Whatever you love, keep loving it. Learn more about it. Take all the time you can to learn about it. And I know it's probably just a couple of things. I don't know if it's just, comics, if it's Legos, if it's video games, if it's something like that. If it's a creative field, follow it and dive into it. And especially if you're kids right now, read as many comics as you can, play as many video games as you can, watch as much TV as you can, because these are the things that are going to be creative. They're going to inspire you. And the sad thing is, when you become an adult, you don't always have time for them, because, I'm still inspired by the stuff I loved most as a kid. Guess what? Spider-Man, the animated series, 35 years old. It was my favorite show when I was 8 years old. It's still my favorite show as an adult. And these things are going to make you the person you're meant to be. And don't be afraid to branch into something new, because, because I can say this, sometimes I'm afraid to get into something new because I might like it. And then of course I'm going to have to learn every single thing about it, but that's a good problem to have. You should always want to learn something new, because education is a never ending experience. And especially if it's fun, that makes it even better because it's entertaining them.
Outstanding. Any other words of wisdom?
I'll have a very, very short, brief one. It was something that I learned that my grandmother always taught me, was that no is sometimes the most positive word you'll ever get, because it always, I've always pushed through. And then to add on to what you were saying, Matt, is that I never let go of the things myself. And I've always, shared these things with Jake as well. I'm a little older, so I was sharing with him everything from Ultraman and Godzilla to G.I. Joe and the Transformers and Voltron, and there's so many things that I was able to share with him. And there's people, and there are going to be people that are going to look at what we do and say, that I don't know how many times I've been called weird, for the things that I enjoy, the things that, the things that I embrace. I too find joy in video games. I'm 47 years old, and I will jump on online multiplayer any day, whenever I can. And yeah, and I can still run. I can still run him right off the racetrack when it comes to Mario Kart. So you don't have to worry. But don't give up. That's what I'm trying to say. It's don't, to add on to it, don't give up. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Don't listen to it. Do whatever it is that you feel is authentic to you. And nobody can tell you that it's wrong. Nobody can tell you that it's different. I mean, it's it is a dream of mine ever since I was a little kid to draw for Saturday morning cartoons or draw comic books or things like that. And to be at my age now and doing this for a living, I mean, this is awesome. This is what I've always wanted to do. There's, for people to actually say that this is their dream and this is what they're actually doing, and it started from there, keep going. Anything's possible. Right, Jake?
Yes.
Exactly.
Never give up.
Exactly.
I heard it from John Cena.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Sally?
Yeah, never give up was the motto of my son's school for kids with learning differences. And it's a great motto, you guys. I don't know. I guess I would say that, you know, comics are an amazing art form, an amazing form of stories. And we're humans and we're hardwired for stories. We need stories in whatever form that resonates with us. We need these stories to help us make sense of the world and to understand what it feels like to be human. So enjoy the stories that you enjoy and just revel in them and read more and be excited and learn and grow and yeah, and never give up.
Thank you. This was wonderful advice. I'm hoping that lots of kids at home are hearing that and taking it to heart, and they are going to be launching into careers that fit something they're as passionate about at 35 as they are at 5. I hope they find telling that story that's in their heart. And I hope that in the words of Jake, that they know that they are awesome and that they are their authentic selves, and that's all they need to be awesome. Comics are a phenomenal way for neurodiverse learners, children, students, readers to connect with the world around them and to show their own communication skills in a way that may not be as traditional as most people are accustomed to, but are nonetheless deep and valid. So thank you all very much for joining me this evening or whenever people are listening to this. The contact information and more information about the panelists will be in the description below this video. And we thank you for joining us.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.